Anyway, hello everyone, and welcome back to another review episode. In this episode, I'm going back to my roots, and I'll be reviewing Van Helsing, as I've already finished A Million Little Things Season 3. Thank you for watching, and it's in the link below if you haven't watched it. As I have mentioned in my last episode, A Million Little Things Season 3, I have started a podcast. In this podcast, I review every episode of A Million Little Things with a friend of mine who hasn't seen it yet. So we started this podcast in December, and now we're in season 2 already. But at the mid of season 1, we decided to add a new segment where we could make the podcast longer by inviting guests or friends and asking them questions about a theme from a theme of the episode, which made it really more personal. So please check it out. It'll be in the link below for the YouTube channel of the podcast. Or if you want to listen it on a podcast device, you can listen it on anywhere you want. Apple Podcast, Spotify, or anywhere you can find a podcast. Spoiler warning is in ahead as usual, so if you haven't seen the show, please do watch the show. This is going to be a warning, as there's going to be a lot of blood in this episode, review episode, where I show clips and pieces. So if you don't like blood, you should, be warned. This is my warning. The show is based on the movie Van Helsing from 2004, starring Hugh Jackman. 3 years in the future of the series, an event called the Rising occurs. The Rising was an event that happened due to the Yellowstone volcano erupting, causing vampires to survive during the daytime, causing an apocalypse. The only person who can save the human race is a woman who seems to be immune to vampirism named Vanessa Van Helsing, portrayed by Kelly Overton. As vampires start to mutate into daywalkers, Vanessa learns the origin of the Van Helsing lineage. Vanessa and her allies team up to kill and cure as many vampires as possible. Her ultimate goal is to defeat the Dark One, also known as Dracula, portrayed by Tricia Hellfire, to stop hell from rising. In my opinion, this show was had a very slow start. In the first 3 seasons, it wasn't really exciting. It was exciting with the twist and all, but season 4 and 5 had the most excitement in my opinion. Most shows go downfall, but in this case, the episode went really up as the season continued. In my opinion, season 4 and 5 was really nice, but season 1, 2, and 3 was very slow. At the same time, it built upon the Van Helsing lineage, allowing for exciting final 2 seasons. Top seasons. Number 5, Season 1. The season wasn't that bad, but the problem with the season was the fact that the entire premises was taking place in this abandoned hospital, which Axel used, portrayed by Jonathan Scarf, to protect Vanessa for the 3 years that she's been in slumber. It's a very interesting concept and it's very enjoyable, but the fact that you're in the hospital and that it's just this one location for the first 7 episodes, it starts to become a little bit boring by the first couple of episodes. The characters introduced was a little bit confusing at times because of the fact that some of the characters were just there to fill a spot in the cast, and it wasn't for a main arc of the show for the entire 5 seasons, but it was just an arc for the first season. Number 4, Season 3. Although this season was better than Season 1, it was disappointing in the fact that the characters had to split up, where Vanessa, Axel, and Scarlett, portrayed by Missy Pergram, explored multiple parts of the world, and Jolene, portrayed by Caroline Cave, Flesh, portrayed by Vincent Gale, Julius, portrayed by Alex Posnick, and Doc, portrayed by Ricky Bernard, went to Denver, a safe zone that was told, and try to have a normal life, but it was disappointing with the fact that they had to split up with each other, because I liked the dynamic with all of them together, with especially with Julius and Vanessa's dynamic relationship. It's very fun to watch. which I'll mention later on. But the premises of the season, where it had a really, really strong season finale and this twist, it's really, really sweet and nice. Number 3, season 2. The season was better than season 1 and 3, as the fact that it's the continuation from season 1, and everyone is exploring. The fact that they introduced Scarlet Harker, as I mentioned, Missy Peregrine, the sister of Vanessa, it was really sweet, nice to see this new mysterious ninja-like character that has skill like Vanessa to be incorporated in the season. The another good part about this season was Julius. After Vanessa turned Julius back to a human, Julius pledged his life to Vanessa, and their relationship was really, really nice. Although this season had this one disappointing fact where Vanessa's daughter, Harper, burned to death after turning back to a human, which was the most saddest part of this season, but the season explored more about the Van Helsing lineage, and it helped the Julius and Vanessa dynamic relationship where they fight. It was really, really nice. Number 2, season 4. After the shocking season finale of season 3, this season was one of the best. Although season 5 was better, this one and season 5 was very relatively the same. This season introduced Violet, portrayed by Kia King, and Jack, portrayed by Nico Muniz, both Van Helsing's, daughter of Vanessa, artificially made. But the fact that they introduced this new two fresh Van Helsing characters and brought them to Vanessa, where Vanessa makes the ultimate sacrifice to sacrifice herself and enter the Dark Realm in order to stop Dracula from rising in the season, made it really, really fun to watch. The fact that everyone in the season had this great story also made it great, but the fact that Violet and Jack's story was really, really connecting to the Van Helsing series from the beginning felt really, really fun to watch. Number 1, season 5. I have to admit, when I started watching this episode 1 of season 5, it felt really confusing as the story took place in the past, and until I saw Jack, it was really confusing for me to know that they were actually this story was actually taking place in the Van Helsing universe. But the fact that they showed the origin of the Dracula and also how her downfall is created in this season made it really, really interesting to watch, as the characters got their closure, some of them, and Vanessa finally is revealed to us on what happened after her sacrifice, and the fact that the season answers all the questions that we required as audiences and as fans. It was a really nice ending for the 4-episode arc that was in for the last 4 episodes. Top 10 episodes. Number 10, The Beholder, Season 4, Episode 13. This episode explores what happened to Violet and Jack when they entered the Dark Realm, as they were spat out of it in the previous episode. This episode shows the showdown between Dracula and the two sisters as they start to talk, and Dracula is trying to lure them into betraying their friends and their country, basically. This episode's really interesting, where Jack gets possessed by Dracula for a couple minutes, and by the end of the episode, Dracula possesses the President of the United States, which leads for a very, very exciting season 5 episodes. In my opinion, this episode is really fun, as this episode finally gets to see what happened to the government and brings us the understanding of what is happening to the country during this apocalyptic time. Number 9, Graveyard Smash, Season 5, Episode 9. This episode starts off with Violet, Ivory, Jack, Axel, and Vincent reuniting with each other. Even though this episode's really good, this episode's a very hard episode as Dracula's men or vampire starts to attack the church that they reunited at, which in turn leads to Vincent staying behind to protect the Van Helsing sisters and Axel and Ivory. So this episode's really sad because I love Vincent, and this is the final episode that to see Vincent. Although this episode has some downsides like death of Vincent, this episode has some really good aspect as everyone is now reunited, which means the further future episodes is going to be really fun to watch. Number 8, Birth Ritual, Season 3, Episode 13. This episode, or I guess the season, is very disappointing as Season 3 is not my favorite, as you know. But this episode was really great in the fact that it teased a lot of things for Season 4 with a very huge cliffhanger. This episode had some very interesting parts, like Sam becoming an elder vampire, Scarlet sacrificing her life so that Vanessa could become a lighter version, because as people saw in season 3, Vanessa was really dark and it was not pleasant to watch sometimes. This episode also teased the showdown between Scab and Julius. It's in Denver. It's really exciting, as you know. It's a showdown that was coming, as Scab was an underling to Julius, but while Julius was a vampire, but now Julius is a human, and Julius is now a good guy. This season, or the episode, also brought back Lillian Van Helsing, who was from the 1800s to the 1900s, vampire hunter, and this is really exciting as there's going to be 2 Van Helsings, one from a very long time ago, and Vanessa. Number 7, The Doorway, Season 5, Episode 9. First of all, I wanted to say welcome back, Vanessa Van Helsing, as this is the first episode that she returns in for Season 5. I was kind of curious what happened to Vanessa ever since she fell into the Dark Realm, sacrificing herself, and trapping the Dark One in there for the Season 4, Episode 7. But this episode's really nice, as it's mainly focused on Alec and Vanessa as they reminisce throughout the history they had, and also they try to figure out how Vanessa has to escape from the Dark Realm. And this episode brings back so many memories, like the time when it was revealed that Sam was the serial killer in season 1. This episode was really jam-packed, even if it was with these 2 main characters that has been there from season 1, which is why I love this episode. Number 6, Dark Destiny, Season 4, Episode 1. This episode takes place right after the season finale of Season 3, and this is jam-packed. As I mentioned, Scab and Julius have this ultimate showdown, which ends with Scab having a grenade blown up, and Julius survives, but they are captured by Black Tech and is forced to work for them. Basically, this episode also introduces, reintroduces Lillian Van Helsing. She and Vanessa takes down Sam, or slows him down, and Lillian's impression of how the world had changed from her time to the 21st century is really fun to watch, as it's like a time machine, but it's not a time machine, as she has been dead. She was revived after a vampire blood spit on her face. Number 5, Together Forever, Season 4, Episode 10. Welcome to Fight Club. I mean, this episode takes place in a arena where a rich idiot is live streaming a fight against humans versus human, and it's not vampires, humans. And this episode shows what happened to Julius and also Violet as they get stranded into this madness of this Fight Club scene. Meanwhile, Jack is trying to track his sister down, Violet, and Axel, using his compass, trying to locate Vanessa, but instead runs into Jack. And Axel learns that Jack is Vanessa's daughter and that they start to team up. And the first thing they do is try to track down Violet, and which leads all of them to be in this the Fight Club room, and they do shut it down, which is a good thing. This episode also makes the mark of Ivory, who was a vampire, turned back by Violet, and now she's on their side, which makes a lot of fun as she's a brilliant fighter, and this is a really nice fact about how you could turn back vampires and they will earn loyalty to the Van Helsings. Number 4, E Pluribus Unum, Season 5, Episode 10. This episode is taking place right after Vanessa is escaped from the Dark Realm, but also the fact that Violet, Axel, Jack, and Ivory decided to split up, with having one Van Helsing managing to get to Washington D.C. is better. So this is an Axel and Violet episode where they are getting closer to D.C., but encounters a strange event, I guess, of where this teenage guy requires Violet's help. And when Axel and Violet tracks them down, they learn that the former president, Archer, turned into a vampire and is now locked up in a bikers gang base, I guess. And before they talk everything out, Violet manages to turn back the president back to human, and this is really great as they have a president on their side, and that's something I never saw coming. But since they have a president coming, they're able to in the future they have a way to get to DC more efficiently, basically. But the president seems to have lost his hope due to the fact that the apocalypse been happening, and the president doesn't believe about Dracula at the beginning, but as Violet and Axel convinces him, the episodes end with the president fully joining their side and calling a general for a favor in the Pentagon. Number 3, Undercover Mother, Season 5, Episode 11. From the previous episode, we were checking on Axel and Violet, but in this episode, we're checking back on Jack and Ivory, where they arrive at the pawn shop that the two were at, and the biker gang from the previous episode becomes a chaperone and taking them to the secret entrance to DC. And as they enter DC, they are welcomed by the resistance of the vampires in DC, and Jack learns that the Dracula's host's daughter or son was a Van Helsing, and that Jack is related to that famous Van Helsing, Jack Van Helsing, from that time. And so the prophecy becomes full circle as Jack enters DC, basically. This episode also have Jack reuniting with Vanessa, finally. They've been apart for a full season, or I guess, because episode 7, so they've been apart for for one season, and they finally reunite, which is a really, really nice point, as everyone gets to DC, the war against Dracula will be coming. And this episode sets up really, really great for the Van Helsings as they declare war against Dracula, basically, and the resistance is also going to be declaring war against Dracula, obviously. But this episode also have Axel and Violet returning back, entering DC, and now the army is finished, but the one last thing to do is they kidnapped the Vice President of the United States because the Vice President has not been turned into a vampire, and that's a really good thing. So Axel prevents the vampires from kidnapping the Vice President or killing him, and Axel and some military guys from the Pentagon gets the Vice President out, and now they're full of army. But there's a twist where the Oracle has been under the influence of Dracula and also the vampirism, that she feels too much guilt that in the end they lose an ally as she commits suicide. Honorable mentions: Help Me, Season 1, Episode 1. Last Time, Season 1, Episode 11. Veritas, Vincit, Season 2, Episode 6. Number 1, Novissima Solis, Season 5, Episode 13. The series finale of Van Helsing was jam-packed with very, very funness, in my opinion. This episode had them finally showing down against Dracula, but as the Resistance and the Van Helsing team prepare to fight, the Resistance turns into a new Secret Service for the President of the United States, which in my opinion was the coolest scene, as it felt really, really warm and fun to see. As Vanessa, Jack, and Violet takes on Dracula, Axel has to save the president as all the resistance turns into vampires because Dracula uses one final trick and turns them into vampire zombie symbiote, basically. As Vanessa sacrifices her life to save Violet and Jack, they are able to destroy the dark one, Dracula, and everyone has a happy ending, except for Jack, who doesn't. But everyone has a very happy ending where the spread of vampirism stops at the heart, which is by destroying Dracula. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time for another review episode.